The red alert lights pulsated on the bridge of the USS Denver as Captain Jake Morrison fixated on the tactical display. The numbers chilled him to his core. 800 enemy ships. 800. He had faced formidable fleets before, but nothing remotely like this. Sir, additional readings coming in from the outer sensors, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, her voice steady, but betraying a subtle edge of worry. The Zephyrian fleet is even larger than initial estimates. Morrison moved quickly to her station, his eyes narrowing as he examined the screen. The red dots representing enemy ships blanketed the display. Each dot symbolized a warship capable of obliterating planets, and all were advancing toward human territory. "How many ships do we have in this sector?" Morrison asked, though he already knew the dismal answer. 12. Including us, Rodriguez replied grimly. 12 ships. Against 800. Morrison, a seasoned veteran of countless battles in the 3-year war against the Zephyrian Empire, had never encountered odds so dire. No human commander had. The Denver trembled slightly as another vessel emerged from hyperspace. Morrison instantly recognized the energy signature. It was the human cruiser Portland, led by his old friend, Captain Bill Hayes. "Captain Morrison, this is Captain Hayes," came a familiar voice over the comm system. "I assume you've seen." "The reading's hard to miss them, Bill," Morrison replied. "What's your status?" "Ready to fight, but not for a pointless death. My crew has families back home. What's the plan?" As the senior officer in the sector, the other ships awaited Morrison's command. What could he say? Fight a futile battle? Retreat and let the enemy push deeper into human space? "All ships, hold position for now," Morrison instructed over the fleet channel. "I'm contacting Fleet Command." Turning to his comm officer, he ordered, "Collins, get me Admiral Johnson, priority 1. The young officer worked swiftly, and soon the weary visage of Admiral Johnson filled the main screen. The war had visibly aged him. "Captain Morrison." The Admiral began without preamble. "I've reviewed your report. How bad is it?" "Sir, this is the largest fleet we've encountered. 100 ships, maybe more. They're in full attack formation, heading straight for us. We have 12 ships to defend the sector." Johnson closed his eyes briefly. "Reinforcements? 3 weeks at minimum," the Admiral replied. "The nearest battle group is tied up near Centauri. The front is stretched thin." Morrison's chest tightened. 3 weeks was far too long. The Zephyrian fleet would reach human colonies in less than a week. "With respect," Sir Morrison said, his voice strained, "we can't hold them off. We might delay them, but I understand, Captain. Do what you can, make them pay for every inch. That's all we can ask." The comm line went dead, leaving Morrison staring at the darkened screen. He turned back to his crew, all eyes on him, waiting. They were good people. Amy Rodriguez, for instance, had a young son back on Earth. Collins had recently married before. This deployment, Chief Engineer Martinez had 2 daughters studying in college. "Dad," Sir Rodriguez interrupted softly. "I'm picking up something unusual on the long-range sensors." Morrison moved swiftly to her console. "What do you have?" "There's something massive approaching from the outer system. It's energy signature. It doesn't match anything in our database." "Not Zephyrion?" "No, sir. The pattern is unlike anything I've encountered." Morrison studied the data. Whatever was approaching was enormous, possibly larger than their most advanced battleships. Yet, its signature was completely alien. "Could it be one of our experimental vessels?" Collins suggested. "Not according to any files I have access to," Morrison replied. "Keep tracking it." Silence settled over the bridge, broken only by the hum of the ship's systems. Outside, space seemed serene, the stars twinkling undisturbed, oblivious to the looming threat. Morrison thought of his wife Susan, likely having dinner back on Earth, perhaps watching the news. Did she know about this situation? Did she understand what he was facing? Sir Rodriguez cut through his thoughts. The unknown contact is closing in. Whatever it is, it's massive, twice the size of a standard battleship or larger, and it's moving fast. Faster than it should for something that big. Morrison frowned. The laws of physics dictated that large ships moved slowly. This defied everything they knew. Any signals from the contact? None, sir. The crew worked quietly, tension thick in the air. Everyone understood the stakes. In a matter of hours, they would confront the largest enemy fleet in human history. They would fight with bravery, but survival seemed improbable. Morrison glanced around at his crew. These were good people who deserved a better fate than a hopeless last stand. But sometimes, he thought bitterly, you didn't get what you deserved. Only what came next. All stations prepare for battle. Morrison commanded firmly. No matter what happens, the folks back home will know we did our duty. His crew responded with quiet determination. Though fear lingered, they were ready. Morrison's pride in them was matched only by his ache for the inevitability of the coming hours. In the vast darkness of space, the 800-ship Zephyrion fleet pressed on. Behind them, something else, a great unknown, drew closer. Space itself seemed to distort as a massive object dropped out of hyperspace. The Denver sensors blared warnings, energy readings spiking beyond measurable limits. What the hell was that? Morrison shouted over the alarms. Rodriguez worked feverishly. Sir, the unknown contact has arrived. It's enormous. On the main screen, a shape began to resolve as sensors locked onto the object. Morrison, a veteran of many battles, had never seen anything like it. The vessel was nearly black, its sharp angles cutting through the void like a predator. Its sheer size dwarfed any human warship, yet there was something uncannily familiar about its design. Size estimate? Morrison demanded. Over 2,000 meters long, sir. Possibly more. It's disrupting our sensor beams. Morrison's unease deepened. We're receiving a transmission, Collins announced. Put it through, Morrison ordered. A confident female voice filled the bridge. This is Commander Lisa Parker of the UEE's Nightfall. We're here to assist. The crew exchanged bewildered glances. Morrison had never heard of the Nightfall, the UEES designation used for United Earth ships, had been retired long ago. Commander Parker, this is Captain Morrison of the USS Denver. I'm unfamiliar with your ship. What's your registry number? There was a pause. That information is classified, Captain. What I can tell you is that we're here to help. Frustration simmered in Morrison. Facing impossible odds, the last thing he needed was a mysterious commander withholding details. Commander, we're outnumbered 12 ships against 800 Zephyrian vessels. Unless you have a hidden fleet, I don't see how one ship, no matter how advanced, can make a difference. You'd be surprised, Parker replied evenly. With the right technology and the right crew, one ship can do plenty. On the tactical display, the Zephyrion fleet pressed forward, led by Admiral Velours. Colossal dreadnought. The formation of Zephyrion ships loomed on the tactical display, with Admiral Velours' flagship at its core. Hundreds of lethal warships surrounded it, moving like predators circling doomed prey. Sir, Rodriguez said softly, I'm scanning the Nightfall, but the readings are ... unusual. What kind of unusual? The power output doesn't align with anything in our database? The weapon signatures? Sir, I don't think those are standard human designs. Morrison's gaze fixed on the shadowy ship displayed on his screen. Everything about it was unsettling. Its size, its technology, its secrecy, and it flew human colors and offered aid. Commander Parker, Morrison called out, I need more information. What kind of ship are you commanding? The kind that wins wars, Captain, Parker replied. Now, I suggest you pull your fleet back to a safe distance. Things are about to get interesting. Before Morrison could respond, his sensors officer interrupted. Sir, the Zephyrian fleet is changing formation. They're preparing to attack. Morrison saw the shift on the tactical display. The alien ships were spreading into their standard attack formation, a maneuver he had witnessed in earlier battles. It was a calculated move. It's designed to overpower defenders with sheer numbers. At the heart of the fleet, Admiral Veller observed from his command seat. For 3 years, he had fought the humans and grown to respect their bravery. But courage was irrelevant against the overwhelming force of 800 ships. Through his translator, Veller addressed his fleet. Begin the attack. Show these humans the price of defiance. The alien vessels surged forward, a tidal wave of destruction. Energy weapons. Powered up, missile tubes armed. In mere moments, the small human fleet would be obliterated. This is Commander Parker. Her voice cut through the chaos. Move your fleet to the coordinates I'm transmitting now. Hold that position no matter what happens. Morrison glanced at the coordinates. It placed his fleet several thousand kilometers from the impending battle. Commander Morrison protested. We can't retreat while you fight alone. Captain, this isn't retreat. It's survival, Parker replied. Stay alive long enough to witness history. Her tone gave Morrison pause. It held no fear or hesitation, only the quiet certainty of someone who knew exactly what was coming. Rodriguez. Any updates on the Nightfall's capabilities? Sir, the readings are extraordinary. Power levels that defy reason. Weapon. Systems I can't classify. There's more crew readings suggest about 50 on board, but their biosignatures are enhanced somehow. Morrison made his decision. All ships, follow my lead. Move to the coordinates, Commander Parker provided. The 12 human vessels withdrew, their engines burning bright as they left the battle zone. Behind them, the Nightfall remained, a solitary figure standing against 800 enemy ships. Commander Parker, Morrison radioed. Good luck. Luck has nothing to do with it, Parker replied calmly. Not for what's about to happen. The Zephyrion fleet reached firing range. Admiral Veller issued the command to attack, expecting the lone human ship to be obliterated within seconds. Instead, the Nightfall began to move. Morrison had never seen anything like it. The massive ship surged forward with an acceleration that defied physics, maneuvering like a nimble fighter instead of a colossal battleship. As it moved, its weapons came to life beams of energy, unlike anything Morrison had ever witnessed. These weren't ordinary lasers or plasma cannons. They looked like concentrated starlight. My God, Rodriguez breathed. What is that? Ship. The first Zephyrion vessels struck by the beams didn't explode or shatter. They simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, the next, nothing remained. Morrison stared in awe as the Nightfall carved through the enemy formation, as if slicing through paper. Ships that had exuded confidence moments before scattered in sheer panic. Sir, Collins said, his voice shaking, are we recording this? Every second, Morrison replied, eyes fixed on the unfolding chaos. On his flagship, Admiral Veller could only gape in horror. His mighty fleet was being decimated by a single human vessel. This was impossible. Wars weren't fought this way. More of his ships vanished. He grasped a chilling truth. The humans had been hiding their true power. Now, they were unveiling it. At 1432 Galactic Standard Time, the Nightfall unleashed its full might. On the Denver's bridge, Morrison watched as beams of radiant energy tore through the void. Brighter than stars and faster than thought, a beam struck a Zephyrion heavy cruiser. It didn't explode or break apart, it simply vanished, leaving behind empty space. What kind of weapon does that? Rodriguez whispered. Morrison had no answer. No one did. The Nightfall moved like a predator. Among helpless prey, the Zephyrion fleet, so sure of itself minutes ago, descended into chaos. Ships collided in frantic attempts to flee the impossible. Sir, I'm timing this, Collins said. It's been 30 seconds since the Nightfall opened fire. Morrison counted 15 Zephyrion ships annihilated in that brief span destroyed. Not damaged. On his flagship, Veller barked frantic orders. His translators struggled to keep up with his native tongue. All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel. All weapons to full power. Hundreds of alien weapons fired simultaneously. Energy beams and missiles engulfed the Nightfall. Enough. Firepower to obliterate a small moon. But when the barrage ended, the Nightfall emerged unscathed. Its shields hadn't even flickered. Impossible, Rodriguez muttered. No shield system can take that. But the Nightfall wasn't merely enduring, it was hunting. Commander Parker's voice came through the comms. calm and measured. Target: the command ship's communication array. Leave the outer ring ships intact. They need to carry word back to their empire. Morrison realized the truth. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a demonstration. Parker was sending a message. The Nightfall's weapons fired again. The beam curved impossibly through space, bending around other ships to strike its precise target. Admiral Veller's flagship lost its communication tower in a blinding explosion, cutting him off from half his fleet. 1 minute, 15 seconds, Collins reported. In 75 seconds? The Nightfall had destroyed over 50 enemy ships and dismantled the Zephyrion command structure. Their formation crumbled. "Sir," Rodriguez said, awe in her voice, "the Nightfall is using some kind of gravity weapon." Warping space around its projectiles, Morrison watched as another shot arced around 3 friendly ships to obliterate an enemy carrier. The physics of this battle defied logic. On his crippled flagship, Admiral Veller finally understood the scale of the threat. This wasn't just advanced human technology, it was beyond anything his empire could fathom. "Retreat," he ordered desperately. "All ships, retreat immediately," but it was too late for many. The Nightfall surged forward again, accelerating, impossibly fast. It appeared beside a cluster of retreating Zephyrian ships. The Nightfall released a web of energy that ensnared a cluster of retreating Zephyrian destroyers. The trapped ships flickered for a brief moment before vanishing entirely. "Another 7 destroyed," Collins reported, his voice faint with disbelief. Morrison felt as if he were watching a simulation instead of a live battle. The Nightfall moved through the void like it was performing a choreographed dance. Each shot landed with surgical precision, every maneuver executed flawlessly. No movement was wasted. Commander missed. "Commander Parker," Morrison called. "Over the comes, what is that ship?" "Something we should have built years ago," Parker replied evenly. "Just needed the right motivation." The right motivation. Morrison's thoughts turned to 3 years of relentless war, 3 years of defeats, retreats, and watching alien fleets grow stronger as human forces dwindled. Had all of this been planned? The Nightfall unleashed a new weapon. This time, instead of starlight beams, it fired projectiles that resembled small black holes. They moved slowly but inexorably, and any Zephyrion ship they touched was obliterated, crushed into nothingness. 3 minutes. Collins murmured, barely audible. Morrison's tactical display showed the Zephyrian fleet in disarray. Ships fled in all directions, their disciplined formation shattered. Panic and chaos had replaced precision. Yet the Nightfall wasn't hunting them all. Exactly 47 ships out of the original 800 were being allowed to escape, sir. Rodriguez said hesitantly, "I think I understand what's happening." "Explain," Morrison prompted. "The Nightfall isn't just winning a battle, it's sending a message." Morrison nodded slowly. She was right. This wasn't about destroying the Zephyrian fleet. It was a calculated demonstration of what humanity could achieve when it stopped pretending to be weak. The Nightfall made one final sweep. Any alien ship still fighting faced its impossible weapons. Those surrendering or retreating were spared. "For minutes," Collins announced. Commander Parker's voice came over the fleet channel, calm and deliberate. "To all enemy vessels, this is Commander Parker of the UES Nightfall. The demonstration is complete. Survivors may retrieve your dead and return to your empire. Ensure they understand what you've witnessed here today." The battle was over. Morrison stared at the tactical display. In just 4 minutes, a single human warship had destroyed over 750 enemy vessels. The largest fleet in galactic history had been utterly decimated, sir, Rodriguez said softly. "What do we do now?" Morrison surveyed his bridge. His crew wore expressions of disbelief and confusion. They had come here prepared to die in a hopeless fight. Instead, they had witnessed an event that would change the war forever. "Now," Morrison said quietly, "we figure out what just happened and what it means." The Nightfall hovered on the main screen, motionless and pristine. Not a scratch marred its dark surface, though it floated amid the wreckage of the destroyed fleet. Somewhere in that wreckage, Admiral Veller grappled with the crushing reality of his defeat. The surviving Zephyrian ships prepared to carry this tale back to their empire. In the vast silence of space, the nightfall lingered, as if weighing its next move. The stillness after the battle was almost as profound as the battle itself. Captain Collins said suddenly, "We're receiving a hail from the nightfall. Put it through." Morrison ordered. Commander Parker's voice resonated. On the bridge, composed as if she'd completed nothing more than a training drill. "Captain Morrison, you and your crews performed admirably today. Please maintain your positions while we finish here." "Commander, I need answers," Morrison pressed. "What kind of ship is the Nightfall, and where did it come from?" Long pause followed before Parker replied, "That's classified, Captain. What I can tell you is that the Nightfall represents years of dedication by some very determined people." Frustration simmered in Morrison. "Commander, 12 human ships just witnessed one vessel annihilate the largest fleet in known history." "My crew has questions. I have questions. I understand," Parker said. "Meet me aboard the Nightfall in 1 hour. Come alone." Channel closed, leaving Morrison staring at a blank screen. Round him, his crew waited for direction. He didn't know what to tell them. "Sir?" Rodriguez ventured quietly. "I've been analyzing the battle data." "What did you find? The Nightfall's weapons? They don't match anything in our database. The energy signatures are entirely foreign, and, sir, the power required to do what we just saw." Morrison leaned over Rodriguez's station, examining sensor data that seemed more like science fiction than reality. "How impossible?" he asked. Rodriguez pointed to the readings. "The energy output recorded would require a power plant the size of a small moon. But the Nightfall is only twice the size of a normal battleship." Morrison's eyes narrowed. Rodriguez was one of the best sensor officers he'd ever worked with. If she said it was impossible, then this ship operated on principles far beyond human understanding. Sir Collins interrupted. "We're receiving reports from the surviving Zephyrian ships." It on screen, the display shifted to show Admiral Veller's battered flagship. The reptilian commander appeared on the feed, his features betraying a mix of shock and fear. "Human vessel." Veller began through his translator. "I request permission to collect our dead and wounded." Morrison glanced at the Nightfall. On his tactical display, its silhouette dark and menacing. It remained motionless, like a predator studying its prey. "Permission granted," Admiral Morrison replied. "You have 2 hours." Veller inclined his head. "Thank you." Then, after a pause, he added, "What manner of ship is that?" Morrison mirrored the same answer he'd received earlier, as classified. Veller's image disappeared, but Morrison could imagine the turmoil in the alien's mind. After 3 years of war, humans had unveiled a weapon capable of obliterating entire fleets in minutes. An hour later, Morrison found himself aboard a shuttle approaching the Nightfall. Up close, its hull was even more imposing. Its surface absorbed light rather than reflecting it. With intricate symbols etched into the dark metal, the shuttle bay was vast, dwarfing his small craft as it landed on the sleek, polished deck. As Morrison disembarked, 2 uniformed figures approached him. "Captain Morrison," greeted a tall man with short black hair. "I'm Lieutenant Tom Bradley. The commander is waiting for you." Morrison followed Bradley through the corridors. The design was alien in its sophistication-smooth walls, soft, omnipresent lighting, had a seamless aesthetic that didn't resemble any human vessel he'd ever seen. "How long has this ship been operational?" Morrison asked. "That's classified, sir." Bradley replied without breaking stride. They stopped at a door that opened silently, revealing a conference room. At the far end, Commander Lisa Parker stood, studying a holographic display of the recent battle. Parker was younger than Morrison had expected, likely in her early 40s. Her sharp gaze gave him the impression she could read his entire service record in seconds. "Captain Morrison," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her. "Thank you for coming." "Please have a seat," Morrison complied. "Commander, I need to know what I just witnessed." "You witnessed the future of human warfare," Parker replied. "The Nightfall is part of a project we've been developing since the war began." "What kind of project?" Parker activated the holographic display, revealing schematics of the Nightfall. The ship appeared even more advanced in its blueprints than in reality. "We call it Project Prometheus," Parker explained. "A black-budget initiative to create game-changing military technology." Morrison studied the schematics. "This is decades beyond anything we've got. Why hasn't this technology been deployed before?" Parker leaned back in her chair. "The question was never if we could build ships like this. It was whether we should." "What do you mean?" Parker's expression grew serious. "Imagine. If every human ship had this level of technology, the war would be over in weeks. But then what? What happens when humanity becomes the most powerful force in the galaxy?" Morrison considered the implications. "You're worried about what we'd become?" "Power corrupts, Captain," Parker said grimly. The people who designed Project Prometheus understood that. That's why they built in safeguards. "What kind of safeguards?" Parker's voice softened. "Ships like the Nightfall only exist when humanity faces an existential threat. When the threat is gone, so are we." Morrison glanced around the advanced conference room. "No, decides when the threat is gone." Parker's tone turned somber. "People who volunteered to bear that responsibility. People who agreed to test experimental technology and live with the consequences." "What consequences?" Morrison asked. Parker hesitated before answering. "The crew of the Nightfall can never return to normal human society. We've seen too much, learned too much. When this war ends, we'll disappear, along with our ship." A chill ran down Morrison's spine. "It's a hell of a sacrifice." "It's necessary," Parker said firmly. "The galaxy isn't ready for technology like this to be common. Maybe it never will be." Morrison rose and walked to the window. Outside, the wreckage of the Zephyrian fleet drifted in silent testimony to the Nightfall's power. 47 ships remained out of 800, and those survivors would soon carry this story back to their empire. "That's the point," Parker replied. Her tone was sharp, decisive. "The Zephyrian Empire needs to understand that continuing this war is suicide, and if they don't listen, ... Her expression hardened. "They'll learn the Nightfall isn't the only ship of its kind?" Morrison turned, a mix of curiosity and unease clouding his face. "How many ships like this do you have?" "Enough," Parker said simply, her tone leaving no room for elaboration. The meeting ended. But Morrison's mind churned with unanswered questions as he boarded his shuttle. Everything he thought he knew about the war felt inverted. Humanity hadn't been struggling against superior alien technology, it had been holding back, waiting for the right moment to reveal its strength. As the shuttle approached the Denver, Morrison glanced back at the Nightfall. It hung motionless, a silent sentinel of darkness in the void, embodying both promise and threat. His crew would demand answers, but Morrison realized something far more profound than weapon specifications or ship capabilities. The most powerful weapon wasn't the one you used, it was the one you kept hidden until the right moment. And humanity, it seemed, had mastered the art of secrecy. The news of the battle spread faster than light. Within 6 hours, every major government in the galaxy had received reports detailing what had occurred at Arcturus. A single human ship had annihilated the largest fleet in history in a mere 4 minutes. The numbers were unbelievable, yet the wreckage scattered across the battlefield made it irrefutable. In his quarters aboard the Denver, Morrison sat at his desk, struggling to compose his official report. How could he explain the impossible? How could he describe witnessing the complete invalidation of everything he knew about warfare in just 4 minutes? His door chimed. Lieutenant Rodriguez entered, holding a datapad and wearing a troubled expression. "Sir, we're receiving communication requests from every human colony within 50 light years," she reported. "And there's something else."
What is
it?" Morrison asked. "The Zephyrian Empire has requested immediate peace negotiations. They want to meet within the week." Morrison looked up sharply. For 3 years, the Zephyrians had advanced relentlessly across human space, confident in their superior numbers and technology. Now, after one battle, they were suing for peace. "Any word from Fleet Command?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Rodriguez replied. "Admiral Johnson is coming here personally. He'll arrive tomorrow." Morrison nodded.
Johnson would want to see.
The battlefield firsthand, to understand the shift that had upended the balance of galactic power. What about the Nightfall? Morrison asked. Still here, sir? Rodriguez said. Just sitting in space like it's waiting for something? Thoughts returned to Commander Parker. The Nightfall had accomplished its mission. The demonstration was complete. But what came next? The following morning, Admiral Johnson arrived with an escort of 6 battleships. Morrison greeted him in the Denver's conference room, joined by the other captains who had witnessed the battle. Johnson looked older than Morrison remembered. The war had aged them all, but facing the impossible could make any man feel small. Gentlemen, Johnson began, his voice grave, I've read your reports. I've studied the sensor data and watched the recordings. And yet I still don't understand what happened here. Captain Hayes of the Portland leaned forward. Sir, we watched technology that shouldn't exist destroy the largest fleet in history. The Nightfall is decades ahead of anything we've developed. But it's a human ship, Johnson said, his tone hard. That means somewhere in our own military, there are people who knew this technology existed. Morrison thought of his meeting with Commander Parker, the burden she and her crew bore. The sacrifices they had made, sir, Morrison said cautiously. The commander of the Nightfall mentioned something called Project Prometheosa, classified program. Johnson's expression darkened. I've never heard of any Project Prometheus. I have access to every black-budget program in the fleet. Maybe it's above your clearance level, Hayes suggested. There is no level above mine, Johnson replied firmly. Morrison realized they were dealing with something entirely outside the standard military structure. Project Prometheus seemed to operate beyond the regular chain of command, accountable only to itself. Sir, Rodriguez called from her station. The Nightfall is hailing us. Put it through, Johnson ordered. CommanderParkers.com. Authoritative voice filled the room. Admiral Johnson, this is Commander Parker. I understand you have questions, Commander. I demand answers, Johnson snapped. What is your ship? Where did it come from? And why wasn't I informed of its existence, Admiral? Parker replied evenly. Project Prometheus exists outside normal military channels for a reason. We answer to a higher authority. What authority? It's the survival of humanity itself? Johnson shot to his feet, his face reddening with anger. Commander, I'm ordering you to report to my flagship immediately. You'll explain this technology and submit to a full debriefing. There was a pause before Parker responded. Afraid I can't do that, Admiral. That's insubordination, Commander. No, sir, Parker replied. That's completion of mission. The Nightfall's purpose here is finished. On the tactical display, Morrison watched as the Nightfall began to move, its sleek form turning toward empty space. Commander Parker, Morrison called out. What happens now? Now, Captain, Parker replied. The galaxy learns what humanity is truly capable of. The war will end within a month. The Zephyrian Empire will sue for peace, and every other alien government will think twice before challenging human space. Your ship? Morrison asked. The Nightfall disappears until it's needed again. Morrison felt a pang of sadness. Though he'd known the ship for only a short time, it symbolized something profound, hope, and the knowledge that humanity was far from helpless. Will we see you again? He asked. That depends, Parker replied. I hope you won't. The Nightfall began to accelerate faster and faster, till it vanished from all sensors. Admiral Johnson stared at the empty space where it had been. Did that just happen? Yes. Sir, Morrison replied. A week later, Parker's prediction came true. The Zephyrian Empire formally requested peace negotiations, offering to return all captured human colonies and pay substantial reparations. Alien governments that had once considered joining the war against humanity instead sought trade agreements. The war was over. Morrison was assigned as a witness to the peace negotiations. He sat across from Admiral Veller, who looked like he had aged years in just a week. Tell me honestly, human, Veller said through his translator. How many ships like the Nightfall do you have? Morrison remembered Parker's words. Enough. Veller nodded slowly. Then we choose peace. 3 weeks later, the treaty was signed, ending 3 years of war with a single document. But Morrison knew the real war had ended in 4 minutes. At Arcturus. Months passed. Morrison returned to routine patrol duties, but the galaxy had changed. Human ships were treated with respect wherever they went. Pirates avoided human space entirely, and even the most aggressive alien governments hesitated to make threats. Late one night, Morrison sat on the bridge, staring out at the stars. Rodriguez was on duty beside him. "Sir," she asked quietly, "do you think we'll ever see ships like the Nightfall again?" Morrison thought of Parker and her crew, somewhere out there, waiting and watching, ready to return if humanity ever faced another threat it couldn't handle alone. "I hope not," Morrison said finally, "because if we see them again, it means we're in more trouble than we can handle ourselves." Rodriguez nodded. "But it's good to know they're out there." "Yes," Morrison agreed. "It's good to know." Inside the viewport, space looked peaceful, the stars shining steadily, showing no sign of the revolution that had occurred among them. But Morrison knew that somewhere in the darkness, impossible ships and their dedicated crews stood ready, willing to sacrifice everything to keep humanity safe. And for devastating minutes, the galaxy had learned a new truth. Humanity was not weak. Humanity had never been the struggling species it appeared to be. Instead, it had deliberately chosen to appear weak, biding its time while creating weapons capable of reshaping the balance of power across entire star systems. Morrison reflected that sometimes the most critical victories were those where no shots were fired. Sometimes merely revealing what you were capable of was enough. The age of human expansion was on the horizon, but it would begin from a foundation of strength, not desperation. And in the shadowy expanse between the stars, the Watchers remained vigilant, prepared to ensure it stayed that way.